Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This channel is for education purposes, and we generally look at um, different authors and different perspectives that give us theories of everything, all-encompassing theories that we can use and utilize in our own life. Um, once we understand them, and usually things that are pretty obscure that you might not have ever heard of if you haven't ever turned on this channel. And today is video number 271 on various aspects of the reciprocal system of theory. And this theory was first um, written up by Dewey B. Larson back in the 20th century. He first had his first epiphanies back in about 1930. Took him about 25, 30 years working his day job to work out the kinks. Got it to the point where he put out his two fundamental postulates in the late 1950s. And from there, he started writing books. Basically, his two fundamental postulates gave him kind of a template, and then he used the process of deduction to arrive at an entire theoretical universe. So if these postulates are correct, then that means this, and then that means this, and that means this. And so he arrived at a whole universe of how things actually are. And I've outlined that in his outline, read his outline of the deductive development of the reciprocal system. I did about 15 videos on that about 6 months ago on this channel. So just go back and look at that if you want to see Larson's thought process as he went through from his postulates all the way to the books that he wrote. He ended up writing books on chemistry and physics and astrophysics and atomic physics and astronomy and economics. He has a book on his last book is on metaphysics. I've also gone through that book in its entirety on this channel, which was called Beyond Space and Time. And that book contains chapters on things like philosophy and psychology and biology and religion and dream interpretation, ethics. And so he applied his theory to many, many different subjects. But then after his death in 1990, some other authors have come along and applied it even further afield to subjects that Larson may not have even contemplated. And one of those people is Dr. Bruce Perret, who we're going to be featuring again today. This is we've done, I don't know, about 50 videos on Dr. Perret's work. And I think this is the 9th video we've done on this particular paper, which is called Extra-Dimensional and Extraterrestrial Entities. And so Perret is using the principles of the reciprocal system to apply to alien life and what we see out there, how to deal with it. Different categories of alien life and such like. Now, Perret, when he writes in a fairly speculative manner like this, he writes under the pen name of Daniel Phoenix 3. And Daniel Phoenix 3 was supposed to be a character from the Phoenix Project, which was, I think, an umbrella term for the Montauk Project, which is a government top secret time travel experiment that went awry back in the early 1983 and set up a loop with 1943. And you could read about that in some of the works by Duncan Cameron or Al Bielek. Um, there's another book that is by somebody who wasn't participating, whose name I don't remember. But it's interesting stuff. Now, I don't know whether Dr. Perret was actually there. He says the character says he was one of the young computer programmers at the project, but I'm not sure if he really was there or not. Um, but anyway, just to get back to the reciprocal system, the basic idea is that we live in a universe made entirely of motion. And, other people have posited that in the past, such as Rene Descartes and Arthur Eddington, Thomas Hobbes. But what distinguishes Larson's universe of motion was that he defined motion as the relationship between space and time. And that sets up a reciprocal relationship between space and time. Motion was basically a fraction with time or space as the numerator and space or time as the denominator. And so all kinds of scientific phenomena are merely forms of motion. And so, if we go to the most basic form of motion that we know of, speed is simply space over time. The bicycle is moving at 18 miles per hour. 18 miles of space in 1 hour of time, space over time. So in the most basic form of motion that we know of, it is actually a reciprocal relationship between space and time. You can see the reciprocal relationship if you say, I would like to double the speed. Well, you can double the speed by saying, okay, well, the bike was originally moving at 18 miles per hour, but now we're going to double the speed, so now the bike is moving at 36 miles per hour. Or, using reciprocal relationships, you could also say that the bicycle is moving 18 miles per half hour. So you can multiply the space, or you can divide the time by 2. Either way will give you the same answer. That's a reciprocal relationship. And so Larson also identifies all kinds of the other scientific phenomena as forms of motion and relationships between space and time, such as acceleration, space over time to the second power; force, time over space to the second power; permeability, time to the third power over space to the fourth power; matter, time to the third power over space to the third power; resistance, time to the second power over space to the third power; electrical capacitance, space to the third power over time; pressure, time over space to the fourth power, and on and on and on. And so this stems from his fundamental postulates, which really are 3 caveats of the time-space relationship. The first is what Larson calls coordinate space and coordinate time, meaning that space and time both have their coordinate aspects, 3 or 4 dimensions, X, Y, Z coordinates, or if you're Buckminster Fuller, you can call it tetrahedral coordinates. And then space and time both have their clock aspects, meaning that pointing at what Larson calls a scalar motion. That's a motion that has a magnitude but has no direction. And you can think of that in terms of the clock. The clock time is always getting later and later and later and later. So that is a motion that has a magnitude, there's a rate at which the clock is getting later and later and later, but it has no particular direction. It just moves forward, and that too that too also describes space. Space also has a clock aspect, and that means that space is always getting farther and farther and farther apart. And that was actually observed by the Hubble telescope, which determined that all of the distant galaxies are moving away from each other. And it can be envisioned using a balloon and a balloon with a bunch of spots on it. If you blow up the balloon, all of the spots are moving away from each other. If you suck in the balloon, all of the spots are moving toward each other, but in no particular direction. That is a scalar motion. That's what you would call the progression of space. Space is always getting farther and farther and farther apart. So that's clock time and clock space. And then the third caveat is the discrete unit postulate. Space and time come only in discrete units. There is no continuity there. There are chunks of space and chunks of time. And you either have one chunk or you don't have any. You know, there is no decimal points. You either have one or you have none. And then from there, you either have two or you still have one. Then you either have three or you still have two. And if you have exactly 1 unit of space in 1 unit of time, you have the speed of light, which Larson refers to as unit speed. The speed of light is 1 over 1 equals 1. And for Larson, the speed of light is the neutral point, or the null point, or the midpoint of his universe, meaning that half of the universe is actually moving faster than the speed of light. This is a half of the universe that the legacy scientists know nothing about. Evidenced by Einstein saying that the speed of light is the maximum speed of the universe. So Einstein is concentrating his whole thing on what Larson describes as only half the universe, the half of the universe that's moving slower than the speed of light. Larson refers to that as the material sector. And that's the sector where you find coordinate space and clock time. These are concepts that we're familiar with. The clock's always getting later and later and later. Space has 3 or possibly 4 dimensions. But then there is the cosmic sector, the half of the universe that's moving faster than the speed of light. And in that sector, you have coordinate time and clock space. Space is always getting farther and farther and farther apart. And time has 3 or maybe 4 dimensions. So these are unfamiliar concepts. And then within each one of those sectors, you also have, in the material sector, you have the time region, and in the cosmic sector, you have the space region. And those are regions within 1 unit. So if you don't have a full unit of space, then that means that you do not have space. And that means that you only have time. Because the universe is made out of motion, and motion is the relationship between space and time. So it has to be one or the other or both. Either you, if you don't have any space, because you don't have a full unit of space, then you only have time. Larson refers to that as the time region. And that is the realm of, atomic matter and molecular matter. And then, in the cosmic sector, you have what's called the space region. And in the space region, you don't have any time because you don't have a full unit of time. You have less than 1 unit of time. And so you have a realm of only space. And that is the realm of cosmic atomic matter or what the legacy scientists would call antimatter. But Larson calls it cosmic matter. So you basically have three major boundaries in the universe: the time region boundary, the space region boundary, or what you would say the unit space or unit time, and then unit speed, the speed of light. And when you cross those boundaries, the rules basically invert. So the rules change when you cross these boundaries and you have different kind of set of parameters. So that's kind of where it goes from. Now, Dr. Perret will take those original ideas from the first postulate. He basically rejects the second postulate, which isn't that important, but the second postulate basically says that the universe conforms to the relationships of ordinary commutative mathematics, its magnitudes are absolute, and its geometry is Euclidean. Perret rejects the idea of Euclidean geometry at the basis of this, not Euclidean geometry in particular, because he posits projective geometry. But projective geometry also includes reciprocal Euclidean geometry. But anyway, Perret takes those basic ideas and he runs with them in his papers. But he uses other things too that he feels are kind of parallel theories, such as the yin-yang theory of Chinese Taoism, and also the projective geometry. In some cases, the symbolism of Carl Jung, and a lot of linguistic parallels that he draws based on Latin, especially, and then also a lot of mythology, especially Norse mythology, but along also Greek mythology and Egyptian and Sumerian. And so Perret is not, his writings aren't as focused as Larson's in terms of the reciprocal system, but he still kind of shows how to use the system and comes up with some very interesting results, even if you don't agree with everything. So we're going to start with this next section in Dr. Perret's work here on the extra-dimensional extraterrestrial entities. And this, again, is like the 9th episode of this. So if you want to start this paper from the top, go back 8 episodes and start there. Now, this section is called Ultimate Answers to Life, the Universe, and Everything. A few questions were posted to the Soldier Hugs website, which eventually became Conscious Hugs, by Explorer that do a good job summarizing what a lot of people are asking. So I'm including my replies here. Question: will we spontaneously evolve and find ourselves in a different body? Question: nature tends to adapt to changing circumstances, baby steps rather than big jumps. If you go along with the transition as it occurs, you'll probably have your same body, but it will begin to get healthier, and the adverse effects of aging will diminish. You will also find new areas of the mind opening up, like being able to sense other life in nature, which will eventually lead to telepathic ability and other psionic skills or psychic skills. But always keep in mind this rule of nature: if you don't use it, you lose it. So if you choose not to make use of the special powers that you have access to, they will not develop and you can stay a happy muggle. Should your body die during the transition, then upon reincarnation you'll find yourself in a different body. Personally, I like the baby step approach because I really don't want to spend another 9 months in the womb waiting to get out, then have to spend years learning how to use another body again just to get back to where I already was. Question: will we end up on a different Earth? I don't see any reason why we should. The Earth may have been beat up a bit by the cabal, but it's only on the surface. They are more like an itchy skin rash than a disease. Down deep, the Earth is still healthy. Remember that Earth is a living entity and would probably appreciate those that stayed around to help to get the old girl back to health. Question: will there be 3 days of darkness until the sun has completed its shift? Last time was 3 days. Since the increase in magnetic ionization of the sun is not linear, fewer elements become available for combustion during the transition each time around. So at most 3 days would be the reasonable answer. Understand that the sun does not stop producing light and warmth. All the normal energy processes of the sun continue on, though the disk of the sun becomes dark. Not totally dark, as there will be veins of red and yellow running across the face where the thermal motion remains in the low speed range, giving a crackly appearance. The poles may also continue to produce light because of the way the magnetic fields align. The sun goes dark because the thermal motion of the photosphere has accelerated to faster than light speeds. So light just moves outside the visible wavelengths. Of course, if you don't know what's happening, it would be a terrifying experience. Personally, I'm just going to kick back and take some video of the event. Nothing to worry about, since I know it is temporary. I don't know when it will happen, as there is just not enough data available on the solar core and the amount of matter available in the solar system as fuel. In the geoengineering paper, I have documented the precursors of the event, many of which are apparent now. There is a good chance that the burst of radio emissions at the onset will knock out all the cell phones, radio, and non-cable television. So if that happens, get ready. Question: wouldn't the general public currently kept unaware of ascension panic or be traumatized? They certainly will be, and it's up to people like yourself that understand what is going on to help out your neighbors. Keep in mind that we have free will, and that can be used to promote our evolution or retard it. Some people will simply not be ready for ascension, and it would be wrong to violate that free will choice to force it upon them. Each must choose for themselves. Question: what should people do before the timelines finally converge? Wait for the cavalry? Stay informed and inform others? I don't know a single Native American that is waiting on the cavalry. Don't see why we should either. The original Montauk detour is already so close to the natural timeline that it can be considered over and done with. That can be seen with the way things are changing worldwide economically, politically, spiritually, and scientifically. All sorts of new things are at hand now that we don't have that pull from walking the difficult path around that temporal mountain from that detour. We need to focus on where we are headed from here. The globalists have paved a couple of nice, easy walking highways in the temporal landscape. With their promises and free handouts, complete with GMO restaurants and police checkpoints at every exit. But we don't have to take these routes. Granted, it is a little harder to pave your own way, but if you want true freedom, it's the only sensible choice. Virtually everyone has precognitive ability, the ability to see a distance in the temporal landscape. Open your eyes and pick where you want to go. Create your own timeline. Grab your family and friends and head out to that unexplored temporal territory and boldly go where no man has gone before. Then send someone back to tell the rest of us what's out there to help us decide if it is our path as well. Okay, now I'm going to stop there. I think actually there's very little left in this paper. Okay, I will continue. This is the last question. How do you think humanity will explore the universe post 2012? So just to keep it, in perspective, Perret was writing this paper pre-2012. Okay, so over 10 years ago, 11 years ago, he was seeing things that seem to be what we're facing right now. So how do you think humanity will explore the universe post-2012? Using stargates? Will our updated bodies allow us to travel by using the time-space world? Stargates are fine for long-distance travel, but heck, we have not been skiing on Olympus Mons yet. There's plenty to see right here in the neighborhood, and only minutes away at Warp 1. One of the psionic skills that does develop is jaunting, or teleportation. But it has limited range and usefulness, as you can only go where you have already been, since localization is done by imagery. That skill does improve as you reach higher densities and are able to astral project first, then yank your body along behind you like baggage in tow. But we're not there yet. Humanity would be out there right now if he did not have the reputation of trashing everything in his path. Laziness causes more damage than weapons. Who the heck wants mankind around throwing beer cans out the airlock with his polluting, noisy chemical rockets blasting through the neighborhood, leaving trails of nuclear waste behind him? When we learn to be good neighbors, those extraterrestrial neighbors will invite us over to tea and even send their chauffeur-driven saucer to pick us up. We need to learn to live in rapport with nature and our neighbors. Then everyone and everything benefits. It's just that simple. Okay, that is the end of this article from Dr. Bruce Perret, Extra-Dimensional and Extraterrestrial Entities. And thanks for tuning in today. We'll be getting to a new article tomorrow, or something new. Haven't quite figured it out yet, but by tomorrow I will have. And thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.